Hello, everyone. Tonight, we are slipping into the velvet-scented shadows of Mughal India. Imagine this. The year is 1627, and I'm waking up to the cool breath of dawn in the imperial city of Agra. Outside, the cobbled courtyard glistens with dew, and somewhere in the stillness, a mynah bird clears its throat, like it's about to start gossiping about the neighbors. I roll over on my charpoy, a woven rope bed that creaks like an old man complaining about taxes, and the scent hits me. Rose water, faint but unmistakable. It's soaked into the very bones of this house. My mother sprinkled it in the corners of the room before she died. She said it keeps nightmares away. Still not sure if she meant for me or for the ghosts. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is over there. I'm genuinely curious. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get down to business tonight. I'm dragging my feet over the sandstone tiles, trying to remember what day it is. The Mughal calendar's always changing lunar stuff, and the sky's a washed-out gray. Somewhere off in the distance, a camel is making an unholy racket. I splash water on my face from the copper basin. It's freezing. I mutter a curse, a polite one, don't worry, and dry my face on a cotton towel my aunt embroidered with little elephants. There's a steaming cup of spiced milk on the ledge. My younger sister must have left it there, either that or I've got a very friendly ghost. From the tiny kitchen, I hear the clang of iron pots and the hiss of mustard seeds. Someone's making breakfast, but I'm already late. There's no such thing as fashionably late when you're in the business of scents. Jasmine doesn't wait. And if you've ever tried chasing down a missed batch of tuberose oil, you'd rather herd cats. I step into my work tunic, dyed indigo soft from years of wear and strap on my waist pouch of sniffing cloths. It's a weird habit, I know, but every master perfumer carries his own swatches. Mine smell like regret and sandalwood. The inner courtyard of our home opens up to a world that hasn't quite woken yet. The city lies beyond the gate, yawning, stretching, scratching itself. I pass under the carved archway where pigeons are already plotting mischief and walk toward the front of our home. We run a sandalwood shop as a front. Yes, technically, we do sell sandalwood blocks, but our real treasures lie behind a door that doesn't even look like a door. It's hidden in the wall, carved so perfectly into the floral motif that only my family and a few trusted clients know it exists. I like it that way. I press a specific flower on the panel, my grandfather's trick, and the latch releases with a gentle pop. The door creaks open into a world of scent. Inside, the air is warm and humid, almost too much. But it's the price we pay to keep the materials at their best. Vials of myrrh. Tiny boxes of saffron long glass tubes filled with amber. There's musk from Tibet, frankincense from Oman. And this one's the crown jewel, a dried civet gland we paid for in pearls. Smells awful on its own. Smells divine when tamed. There's a ledger on the table. My handwriting looks like a drunk parrot's, but I can just make out yesterday's inventory. We're running low on Rose Otto again. I make a note to flog the apprentice who forgot to refill it. Not literally, obviously, just a very passive-aggressive glare and a long silence. I light a little cube of oud and wave the smoke around the room. The scent is deep woody, like a thunderstorm walk through a forest in velvet slippers. And beneath it, I sense something sharper. There it is. The ghost of an idea. A new blend. I can almost taste it. Just as I'm closing the door behind me, the shop bell rings. My uncle's manning the front, but he hollers for me anyway. Something about an urgent scroll. I sigh. Nothing good ever comes on a scroll. I walk out squinting in the sunlight, and there he is, a courier from the red fort, draped in royal blue, and puffed up like a peacock who's just won a duel. He doesn't bow. Of course he doesn't. He hands me the scroll, like he's delivering Judgment Day. I break the seal. It's from the imperial court, Shah Jahan himself. My heart skips a beat. Then two. The message is brief but clear. A new fragrance is required for Her Majesty. Present a sample by week's end. The Empress must be surprised. Oh, great. No pressure at all. Just craft something worthy of the most powerful woman in the empire. You know before Friday, and yet I smile. This is why I do it. The thrill, the chase, the impossibly high expectations. It's like trying to bottle a dream with a spoon, and I love every second of it. I glance at the sun overhead. Still time. Still jasmine blooming. Still bees to outrun. The city is waking up now. The streets thickening with carts and children, and old men arguing over mango prices. Somewhere a veena is playing a lazy raga, and I'm heading out the door, pouch of sniffing cloths at my side, determination in my step. Let's go make something unforgettable. By the time I reach the old garden gates, the sun is dragging its golden sleeves across the tops of the palace domes. The Mughal gardens are no ordinary backyard. They're symmetrical heavens carved into the land, everything perfectly balanced. Geometry you can smell. A squirrel darts past my feet like it's late for a royal appointment. Probably is. The animals around here have more structure to their lives than I do. I nod at the gatekeeper, who knows me well. He doesn't ask questions anymore. I'm the scent man, as they call me, and that title gets you a surprising number of free pomegranates. The smell hits before the view. Jasmine heavy and sweet, like a secret whispered too close. Beneath it, champa flowers, those yellow blooms shaped like reluctant stars. There's a wetness to the air, a kind of soft weight that makes everything smell 3 times stronger. My apprentices are already inside. There are 3 of them today. Hassan, the eldest, and most likely to accidentally mislabel things. Samir, who has the nose of a god and the patience of a gnat, and little Muna, who mostly just carries baskets and looks terrified. I clap my hands once. We need fresh jasmine, at least 3 pounds. And don't crush them like you did last time, Hassan. I'm still getting letters about that horrible temple blend. Hassan rolls his eyes and wades into the flower beds. Here's the trick to harvesting flowers for perfume. They have to be picked before the sun burns off their oils. That means I've got maybe an hour of prime plucking time before all I'm left with is perfume-flavored salad. I crouch beside a bush and begin the old rhythm: pinch, pull, breathe, repeat. The scent clings to my fingers like gossip. I hold a flower up to my nose. It's shy buttery with a smoky note underneath, could be good with a musk base. Maybe even some cedar. A bee buzzes by my ear and nearly gives me a heart attack. I swat at it with the dignity of a drowning goat and fall backward into a patch of holy basil. Muna giggles until I glare at him, which only makes him giggle more. From the other side of the garden, I hear voices. 2 women in colorful veils are arguing about something to do with their neighbor's peacock and someone's stolen bangles. I tune it out. Focus. Jasmine first, gossip later. Though I file away the peacock bit, maybe there's a scent in that story. Stranger things have inspired perfume. Champa flowers are trickier. Their oil is delicate volatile. We use them mostly for nighttime perfumes, the kind you dab on your wrist when you're hoping someone notices. I gently pluck the golden blossoms and layer them into the cloth-lined basket. Each flower is a tiny note in the larger song I'll be composing tonight. A fragrant chord, if you will. While we work, I lecture the boys. It's tradition. My grandfather did it. My father, too. Apprenticeship means enduring both calluses and monologues. Did you know I begin holding up a blossom, like it's about to sing opera, The Persian word for perfume is attar. That's where we get attar of roses. The Greeks had perfume too, but they mostly rubbed themselves with scented oil and hoped for the best. Samir snorts, like Hassan does. Hassan throws a flower at him. It misses and hits a gardener who looks up and glares like he's been insulted by a particularly rude tree. The sun is rising fast now. I check the baskets full enough. The jasmine is already warming the champa, turning syrupy. Time to go. As we're leaving, I notice something odd near the fence. A cluster of blackish berries hanging from a thorn bush. They weren't there last week. I pluck one and sniff sharp bitter, almost metallic. Intriguing. Hassan peers over my shoulder. Don't eat it, you'll die. Thank you for the scientific input, I mutter, tucking the berry into my pouch. Might be worth distilling later. If nothing else, it'll make for a good story. Back through the gates, we go trailing petals and arguments. The city's properly awake now. Vendors calling out cows, asserting their right of way. And somewhere someone's playing a drum with the subtlety of a marching army. We cut through an alley shortcut. Don't worry. I've only been mugged there once and emerged near the back of our workshop. My uncle is out front arguing with a customer over the price of sandalwood again. This block was kissed by a saint, he insists, waving a chisel for emphasis. Inside, I tell the boys to prepare the stills. It's time to begin Deg Babka distillation, a Mughal invention, by the way. And don't let any Persian or French historian tell you otherwise. Though to be fair, historians still debate whether India or Arabia produced the first true perfume. I lean over a copper cauldron. We fill it with water toss and the flowers and seal the lid with a paste of wet clay and cloth. The lid is connected by bamboo pipes to a condensing flask immersed in cool water. It's clunky, fragile, and utterly beautiful. Muna lights the fire underneath and jumps back like he expects it to explode. One time it did. Long story. Slightly missing eyebrow. Steam starts rising, carrying the soul of the flowers into the pipe. This is where magic happens. The scent gets separated from the flower, cooled and collected drop by precious drop. I always say, making perfume is like catching ghosts. You can't see them, can't hold them. But oh, you'll know when they're there. You'll feel the shiver, the memory, the ache. By mid-morning, the room smells like a goddess's breath. Sweet, soft, a little dangerous. The distillate will take hours, but I already know this batch is good. I wipe my hands on a cloth and glance at the imperial scroll again. Surprise the Empress, it says. She once wore a blend made of rose sandalwood, and something she claimed reminded her of her mother's silk closet. No pressure. I sip some cold water and sigh. The hardest part's yet to come, deciding what to say with the scent. But for now, I let the stills hiss, the flowers sweat their last sweet whispers, and I pretend I'm not worried. The stills are hissing like a nest of gossipy cobras by the time I finally sit down to rest. My back is sore, my fingers sticky with crushed petals, and I smell like the romantic regret of a dozen empires. But rest never lasts long in this line of work, not when a royal courier's involved. That's when I hear it hoofbeats. Now hoofbeats in the middle of Agra aren't unusual. It could be a nobleman, a fast-trotting delivery, or just someone trying to impress a woman. But this is different. The rhythm is sharp, precise. Couriers have a way of riding that feels impatient. The door bursts open before I even have time to stand. A man in imperial blue steps in trailing dust and authority. He holds out another scroll. Yes, another one. And this time, he doesn't wait for me to open it. By order of the Empress, you are summoned, he says. His voice has the polite menace of someone who's tired of explaining things. Summoned, I echo. I haven't even spilled anything yet. No offense, meant, he says deadpan. But when Her Majesty calls, she does not wait for your spillage. Fair enough. Hassan looks at me with raised eyebrows. Are you going to wear that? I glance down. My tunic is stained with flour oil, clay paste, and what I hope is not civet extract. Of course I am, I say. It's authentic. 15 minutes later, I've rinsed my hands, smoothed my hair, and slipped into a cleaner, but still definitely perfumer-looking robe. Midnight blue with gold trim, a gift from a textile merchant who owed me for a saffron blend that helped him win back his wife. Outside, a palanquin waits. Not for me, I'm not that important. But the courier has a spare horse. It's an old gray mare who looks like she's personally unimpressed by emperors, perfumers, and maybe all of existence. We get along immediately. We clop through the streets of Agra, weaving past ox carts and sari stalls. People part at the sight of the courier's seal. Me. They mostly stare at the horse, who has now decided to sneeze on everyone within range. Your horse has very democratic opinions, I mutter. She's the Empress's second favorite. The courier says, dead serious. Don't anger her. Noted. The red fort looms ahead, all red sandstone and architectural drama. It's like a lion reclining on its throne, beautiful, imposing, and very aware of its own power. We pass through the gates without delay. Inside, the air changes. It smells like stone and incense and old decisions. Courtiers flit around like jeweled birds, whispering secrets with their eyes. Somewhere, a sitar plays a scale slowly enough to make your soul ache. The courier leads me through a series of marble hallways and into a shaded inner courtyard. It's quieter here, more sacred, the heart of the fort. And that's where I meet him, the eunuch. He stands tall, clad in silk robes that probably cost more than my house. His face is unreadable, like it's been carved to look impressive in any lighting. He speaks softly, but with the kind of power that makes you straighten your spine, even if you're lying down. Come, he says. No name, no title. Just that one word delivered like an order from a velvet blade. We pass through yet another veil-draped passage. I begin to wonder how many layers separate the world from the Empress. 100, 1,000. At some point, we stop being in the palace and start being inside the palace, like the stomach of a beast made of silk and gold. Finally, the eunuch stops in front of a carved wooden door. He knocks once. The door opens without sound. Inside is the scent of cool marble and rosewater, and beyond a sheer curtain. Her, Mumtaz Mahal. I don't see her face. Not really. Only the silhouette of her hand resting delicately on a cushion. A tray of pomegranates sits untouched. There's a faint rustle as she adjusts her veil. Even unseen, her presence is magnetic. You're the perfumer, she says. It's not a question. Yes, Your Majesty, I reply, keeping my voice low, respectful. You never shout in the presence of power. You whisper and hope they lean in. She gestures for me to sit on a low cushion. I want a new scent, she says. Something no woman has ever worn. Something that smells like the monsoon before it begins. Like tiger breath on wet stone. There's a long pause. I say, which is my polite way of saying what? She chuckles. Too much. No. Just the right amount of poetic madness. I glance at the tray. A slice of pomegranate glistens like a ruby in the sun. That gives me an idea. I'll begin experimenting today, I say, but I'll need access to the Zenana Gardens and your permission to use saffron from the imperial kitchens. Granted, she says, instantly. Oh, that was fast. Also, she adds, I want the base to linger on skin for 3 days. I want to smell it when I wake up. I want it to haunt the women who pass me. I blink. Of course, Your Majesty. Like a memory that refuses to leave. Exactly, she whispers. There's a pause, and I realize she's smiling behind the veil. You're more poet than perfumer. I've always said the nose is just a frustrated bard. She laughs. It's soft, unguarded, and somehow more intimate than the entire conversation. Then she waves her hand. You may go. The eunuch is already beside me. I'm escorted out in silence, though I swear I hear her humming behind the door as it closes. Outside, the sun is brighter, the fort noisier, and I suddenly feel like I've been given a mission from a goddess. Tiger breath on wet stone. Back at the workshop, I'm pacing in a circle so aggressively that even the civet cat in the corner looks concerned. Tiger breath on wet stone. That's what the Empress said. Not rose, not sandalwood, tiger breath. I muttered to myself, like a street prophet with a spice addiction. Hassan finally interrupts me by dropping a cloth-wrapped bundle on the table with a satisfying thunk. You wanted the older musk pods from Kashmir, he says. And by the way, Samir broke one of the distillation flasks trying to flirt with a laundry girl. I wave him off. As long as he didn't flirt using vetiver oil, that stuff smells like a swamp in a tuxedo. He didn't. Apparently he used rose water, which is ambitious. I unwrap the musk pods and inhale deeply. Sharp, animalic, almost rude, but exactly what I need. This isn't the soft sort of scent you wear to a wedding. This is the scent of something watching you from the dark, something that breathes heavily and doesn't blink. I pluck a few pods, scrape the inner paste, and store it in a tiny silver tin. Next comes the stone. No, not literal stone. That would smell like dust and disappointment. I need the illusion of wet stone, something mineral cold, but somehow alive. I rummage through a tray of oddities, dried bark sea salt crystals from Gujarat, a few pieces of orris root. Then I find it, a dark gray slab of vetiver resin. It smells earthy cool with just the tiniest hint of wet clay. Jackpot. Samir pokes his head in. We got a message from that sandalwood guy in Kanauj. He says he's sending the batch you requested, but warns that it's been touched by the monsoon. Whatever that means. Probably means it's moldy, I sigh. Still, sometimes mold adds character, like my aunt's pickles. Muna arrives with a bowl of fresh saffron and threads stolen, obtained from the imperial kitchens. The boy looks like he just committed high treason and enjoyed every minute of it. I inspect the threads. Deep crimson, the kind that stains your fingers and your soul. I set everything on the table. Musk, vetiver resin, saffron, and a bit of the mysterious bitter berry I picked earlier. It's a scent puzzle, and I'm just now putting the edges together. The first attempt goes terribly. Too much musk. It smells like a tiger with intimacy issues. Second attempt. Too earthy. More like wet laundry than wet stone. Third time's the charm. A whisper of saffron, a touch of musk, softened with a tiny drop of rose to keep it human. Then I add something truly ridiculous. A single drop of rainwater collected from my rooftop during last week's storm. For luck, I dab it on a strip of cloth and hold it up. There it is. Not exactly tiger breath, but something close. Something that prowls and lingers and refuses to explain itself. I sit back with a sigh. It's just a test sample. I'll need to let it settle age for a day at least. But the bones are there. That's when my stomach growls, like it's staging a rebellion. Lunch, I declare, grabbing my robe. To the hammam, Hassan frowns. You're going to a public bathhouse now? Yes, I say. The Empress asked for tiger breath. I need to smell other people. You know most people try to avoid that exact situation. Exactly why I go. The hammam is a steamy, echoey, slightly chaotic paradise. It's where the city's finest noses meet to soak steam and spread rumors like butter on naan. I strip down, wrap myself in a towel, and enter the main chamber. The air is thick with eucalyptus and ambition. A barber waves at me from the far corner. Perfumist, he calls. Come smell this new balm I made. It has goat tallow and crushed mint. I nod politely. Sounds like something I'd put on a wound and regret instantly. He laughs. My wife said the same thing. We soak. We chat. A man with oil-slicked hair tells a story about a concubine who disguised herself as a perfume seller to sneak into the palace. Another man insists crocodile poop works wonders for sunburn. That one sparks debate. Crocodile poop, I ask. Yes, he says, delighted. The Egyptians used it. That explains a lot about their statues. Say what you will? He sniffs, but it works. I decide not to follow up. I've learned to let some information pass through me like smoke. Afterward, I eat a plate of yogurt and sweet melon in the courtyard towel still wrapped around my waist, hair still damp. This is my thinking space. Someone nearby is reciting a love poem under their breath. A slow, sorrowful couplet that makes the melon taste sad. That's good. Sadness is a powerful note in a perfume, especially royal ones. The Empress didn't ask for happiness. She asked for memory. And memory, my friends, is usually soaked in longing. Back at the workshop, I distill a tiny batch of the third blend, using the Deg Papka again just to fix it properly. The scent evolves, softens, darkens, deepens, like a secret deciding whether or not to confess. Then the door creaks open. A servant enters, holding a red cord in his hand. Not a message, a sign. I've been summoned, by name, to the Zenana. Her Majesty doesn't want a sample. She wants me. By the time I'm back at the Red Fort, the sun is slipping lower in the sky, throwing long shadows across the courtyard like velvet ribbons. I'm ushered through the gates without a word past guards who pretend not to stare, and eunuchs who definitely do. This time, I'm taken through a different set of corridors, narrower, quieter. The walls here are painted with soft floral patterns, delicate vines in lapis and gold, curling into blossoms that seem to shift with the light. The scent of tuberose hangs in the air, sultry and sleepy, as if the building itself is dreaming of a lover. We pass under a low archway where a silk curtain flutters like it knows a secret. And then we arrive. The Zenana, the women's quarters. Men don't go in here, not unless summoned, not unless trusted. And even then, it's usually only the eunuchs, the old physicians, and on rare days like today, the royal perfumer. A veiled attendant appears from behind the curtain. She gives me a nod, so imperceptible, it's basically an accusation, then gestures for me to follow. I step inside and immediately feel the hush. The air is thick with whispers and sandalwood, and I get the distinct sense that everything here is both watching and remembering. We walk through a shaded walkway lined with cushions and golden lamps. Women recline in the shadows, their faces hidden behind thin veils. Their laughter floating like perfume light, teasing laced with danger. Somewhere, a parrot squawks in Persian. Someone else responds in Turkish. The languages here swirl, like the scents layered elegant and just a little bit threatening. I'm led to a chamber, separated by carved wooden screens. Through the lattice, I see the silhouette of the Empress. She's seated cross-legged on a cushioned dais, surrounded by bowls of crushed flowers, strands of pearls, and scrolls. Her fingers move with lazy precision, sifting through saffron threads like she's braiding sunlight. She speaks without looking up. I smelled your second blend last night. I wait. It's close, she says, but not quite. It lacks memory. I nod slowly. Memory is a difficult thing to bottle. Not if it belongs to someone else, she replies. You'll make a new version, here, now. with me. Oh, that kind of visit. She gestures, and the attendants disappear. Just like that. I'm left standing in a velvet-wrapped room with the most powerful woman in the empire and a table full of raw materials. I clear my throat and sit, slowly, respectfully. She points to a brass dish. Inside is a handful of crushed marigold petals steeped in oil. Add that, she says. It smells like the temple I visited as a girl. I nod, and with delicate fingers, I blend the marigold oil into a small bowl of sandalwood base. The scent brightens immediately, taking on a kind of dry, golden edge. Sharp, but not unpleasant. Now add this, she says, pushing forward a dried fig wrapped in cloth. It reminds me of my mother's garden. The fig trees were wild, sweet, but the leaves stung. I nod again. Figs are unusual in perfume. Sticky resinous. But that's the point. This isn't for the market. This is for her. As I crush the fig and swirl it into the mix, the Empress leans in closer, her voice softer now. Did you know, she says, that Cleopatra once perfumed her sails so her arrival could be smelled before it was seen? I did, I reply. Historians still debate whether that story's true or just a poetic flourish. She smiles. Most of history is perfume. It fades. It lingers. It distorts. I add a final drop of amber. Warmth, depth, a whisper of something ancient. We sit in silence as the scent opens, breathes, unfolds. Finally, I hold it out. She lifts the bowl to her nose and inhales. Her eyes close. She doesn't speak for a long time. When she does, it's almost a whisper. Yes, she says. This is what I meant. There's a pause. Then she leans back and laughs. Though if you ever tell anyone I asked for fig and marigold, I'll have your hands removed and preserved in rose oil. Understood, I say with a smile. Discretion is my third best quality. What's the first? My nose. And the second? Knowing when to leave. I rise, bow low, and begin to gather my tools. But just before I step away, she says, You'll deliver a sealed vial to my chamber tomorrow, and include a note. I want to know what you call it. That stops me. Of course, I say. But it might not be poetic. She smiles again. Even better. As I leave the Zanana, the air outside feels sharper, colder. Like I've just stepped out of a story I wasn't meant to hear. Hassan meets me at the base of the hill, his arms crossed and his face full of questions. Well, he asks. I need more fig, I mutter. He stares. I beg your pardon? Don't ask, I sigh. Just find me a merchant who won't ask why I want temple-marinated fruit. He nods and runs off, probably wondering if I've finally lost my mind. I walk slowly back to the shop, my thoughts still heavy with saffron and secrets. That night, under the flickering lamp in my chamber, I label a tiny vial with a word I've never used before. Rax. It means to dance, because that's what the scent does. On the skin, in the air, in memory. It dances. The next morning, I'm back in the workshop before the pigeons have even had their first argument. The city is still yawning, but I've already lit the charcoal burner and laid out the tools. The vial labeled Rax sits in a silver box, cushioned in folds of cotton like a newborn jewel. I wrap it carefully. Tie it with a gold-threaded ribbon, overkill maybe, but I'm not risking royal side-eye, and tuck it into a silk pouch embroidered with the imperial crest. I've outdone myself. The Empress may not weep when she opens it, but she'll at least sigh meaningfully. Hassan arrives late, as usual, holding a crust of flatbread and looking like he hasn't slept in 3 rains. Did you know, he says between bites, that Samir tried to make his own perfume last night, used mint vinegar and cumin. Did he summon the dead? Worse. He burned a hole in the rug. Classic Samir. I leave the final delivery to the royal handlers and give strict instructions not to drop, shake open sniff, or otherwise interact with the pouch unless commanded by the divine hand of the Empress herself. Then I sit back in the courtyard and allow myself one single moment of satisfaction. That's when I hear it. The bells, not temple bells, not wedding bells. These are heavier, deeper, hanging from the neck of something large, something four-legged, something with terrible timing. I rush out front, just in time to see an elephant, my elephant, trampling through the market square, with a look of existential panic in its eyes and a basket of perfumes swinging wildly from its side. It's not the elephant's fault, he sneezed. A great thundering blast that sent the handler flying, and the perfume crates tumbling like a scene from a particularly fragrant nightmare. I sprint forward, waving my arms like a man who just bet everything on a bottle of lavender oil. "Stop that elephant," someone yells. "I am trying," I shout back, diving for a crate that narrowly misses a passing goat. Hassan arrives out of breath, followed by Samir, who somehow manages to trip crash into a fruit stand and launch a pomegranate directly into the side of the elephant's head. The elephant stops, dead still, then turns slowly with the full, majestic fury of a betrayed god. For a second, I think it's going to flatten us all. Instead, it sneezes again violently and sends a fine mist of attar of roses into the air. And just like that, the square falls silent. A dozen onlookers blink in slow motion as rose oil wafts through the crowd. A beggar gasps. A noblewoman faints. Someone in the back starts weeping and murmuring about childhood summers. I can't believe it. It's beautiful. By pure chaos and chance, the elephant has created the most unintentional, extravagant public perfume demonstration in Mughal history. "Write that down," I whispered to Hassan. "We're calling it the elephant bloom." The handlers finally regain control. The crates are salvaged mostly, and the rogue elephant is fed mangoes until it remembers who it is. Miraculously, the royal vial of rax is untouched, nestled safely beneath layers of cloth, like it slept through the whole ordeal. We get everything repacked and back on track for the Red Fort. The Imperial Guards accept the delivery with only minimal suspicion and one raised eyebrow. Back at the workshop, I collapse onto the floor and announce I'm retiring. This business is cursed. I'm going to become a melon vendor. No explosions, no sneezing beasts. Samir walks in with a splinter in his foot and says, "I heard crocodile poop can help with that." I throw a sandal at him. Later that afternoon, I receive word that the Empress loved the blend. A scroll arrives, sealed with her personal emblem, and scented faintly with rax. Inside a single line it danced. "Read it once, twice, then smile so hard my face nearly breaks in half." The boys cheer, someone opens a bottle of tamarind wine, and even the civet cat seems pleased, though that may just be because Samir dropped a fish. With the crisis behind us, we settle into our evening routine. I start a new batch of sandalwood base, this time experimenting with dried apricot for sweetness. Hassan watches with mild horror. "You're going to ruin the still," he mutters. "Or invent dessert," I counter. In the back room, Muna is labeling bottles in handwriting that resembles spilled ink. Samir's trying to recreate his mint cumin vinegar disaster, and I don't have the heart to stop him. Every nose must suffer before it learns. Just before sunset, a client arrives asking for something mysterious and dangerous, like forbidden love on a rainy night. I hand her a vial of vetiver and black pepper with a drop of civet. She sniffs, eyes widen. "Perfect." I nod. "Name it what you like." I call it parental disapproval. As the sun disappears and the sky turns bruise purple, I light a few lanterns and listen to the evening azan echoing across the rooftops. The shop smells like success, disaster musk, and mangoes. And somewhere in the distance, I think I hear an elephant sneeze again. The morning after the elephant incident, I wake up to find my feet still aching and my dreams still drenched in rose oil. I hobble over to the basin, splash my face, and stare at myself in the mirror. My beard's uneven, my eyes are red, and my hands still smell faintly of saffron and fear. Hassan greets me in the courtyard with a sheepish grin. "So, would now be a good time to mention that the Empress sent a second summons. I blink. You're joking. He hands me a scroll. The seal is fresh. The scent racks, but sharper, like it's picked up something new. Inside the message, her words are simple. Come alone. Bring nothing. You'll be blending with memory. I don't even pretend to understand what that means. But by now, I know better than to question cryptic invitations from women who can order your beheading between lunch courses. I make my way back to the Red Fort this time, with no tools, no oils, no vials. Just my nose, my mind, and a healthy sense of impending doom. The eunuch meets me at the same corridor as before, dressed in crimson this time, and with an even tighter expression. Her Majesty is not in her chamber, he says. She awaits you in the mirrored hall. Ah, that explains the red. The Sheesh Mahal, literally the Palace of Mirrors, is a vast chamber tucked within the fort's northern wing. The ceiling is encrusted with tiny convex mirrors, each reflecting the flicker of oil lamps, so it feels like you're standing inside a jar of captured stars. It's beautiful, overwhelming, slightly nauseating if you spin too fast. The Empress stands alone at the far end, veiled, her silhouette framed by a massive arched window, letting in slanted beams of dusty light. No guards, no attendants, just her and me. I bow, Your Majesty. She doesn't turn. Do you know what this place was before it became a hall of mirrors? No, I admit. A hunting gallery, she replies, built by my husband's grandfather. Falcons flew through here. Now it holds stars. She turns slowly. I want a new scent. I try to smile, of course. I want it to remind me of someone I lost. And just like that, the air changes. I nod quietly. Tell me about them. She walks toward one of the mirrored panels and touches it gently. My brother. He died 2 winters ago. Fever. I don't speak. I let the silence bloom. He used to bring me wild lemons from the garden. Said they tasted like secrets. Wild lemons, unusual. Bitter, bright, sharp, but memorable. He used to sleep with his head covered in jasmine-scented scarves because he was terrified of ghosts. Smart man, I say softly. Ghosts hate competition. She chuckles, but it's the kind that turns into a sigh halfway through. And on rainy nights, she adds he used to burn pine needles in the brazier. Said the smell kept his thoughts from escaping. Wild lemon, jasmine, pine smoke. I close my eyes and try to imagine the blend. Not just the scent him. The perfume of grief is a dangerous thing. Too little emotion, and it's forgettable. Too much, and it becomes unbearable. I kneel and start mixing oils from memory. A base of pine tar, a hint of citrus peel soaked in rose vinegar, a whisper of jasmine, absolute aged faded, like a scarf left too long in a box of memories. I pull a piece of linen from my sleeve, one I carry for blending in emergencies, and dab the concoction onto it. Then I offer it to her, still kneeling. She holds it to her veil, inhales, and says nothing. The light filters through the mirrors like slow tears. Finally, she speaks. That's him. I don't respond. I know better. She folds the linen and tucks it inside her sleeve. You may go. I rise, bow again, and turn toward the door. Just before I leave, she adds, call it Zard Saya, yellow shadow. I translate under my breath. That's what we used to call him when he'd sneak around in his lemon-colored shawl, trying to scare us. I smile and walk out, heart a little heavier steps, a little softer. Back at the workshop, I mix a batch of Zard Saya, just 5 vials. No more. It isn't meant for the market. It's too personal, too honest. Samir tries to sniff it and immediately tears up. This smells like childhood, and also like being scolded in the rain. Perfect, I mutter. That evening, a local noblewoman stops by. She asks if we have anything lonely but regal. I hand her Zard Saya. She sniffs once, then hands it back. Too honest. I nod. That's fair. Later, I light a small brazier in the back, and toss in a handful of pine needles. The smoke curls up into the beams like a memory too stubborn to fade, and I sit there in silence thinking about yellow shadows and mirrored halls. By the time morning creeps in, I've already decided to take the day off. Naturally, that decision is immediately ruined by a knock on the door. A voice yelling something about urgent imperial business, and the unmistakable sound of Hassan tripping over a crate of frankincense. I swing the door open with the enthusiasm of a man who has smelled too many emotions lately. It's another royal messenger. Of course it is. This one is younger jittery and smells faintly of fear and cardamom. He hands me a scroll sealed with crimson wax. No scent, no flair. That's never a good sign. I unroll it. The message is curt, imperial, and wildly inconvenient. The emperor commands a fresh fragrance to be applied directly to the peacock throne before this week's full moon. Scent must complement the empress's aura, but not overwhelm it. Do not fail. Nothing like a vague, high-stakes assignment to jolt you out of rest. The peacock throne, for context, is not just a throne. It's the throne, encrusted with rubies, diamonds, and more peacocks than nature intended. It's the kind of thing that says I conquered half the world and decided to sit on it. Perfuming it is both an honor and a trap. If I underdo it, I'm a disappointment. If I overdo it, I've just upstaged the ruler of the known world. No pressure. I call the team into the mixing room and lay out the challenge. We need something regal, I say. Bold but restrained. Alive but ancient. Something that says, yes, I run an empire, but I also have excellent taste. Samir raises a hand. What about cinnamon? Too bakery. Amber. Too warm. Goat hair steeped in saffron. I stare. Go away. We brainstorm for hours. Vetiver rose, musk camphor. None of them feel right on their own. Then Munna, who has been quietly dusting the back shelves, says, what about Koos? I turn. Koos. The wild grass. Earthy grounding smoky. Used in cooling mats and old temple garlands. It's one of the oldest scents in our toolkit, often overlooked, because it doesn't shout. But that's the point. The throne shouldn't shout. It should hum. We pull out the reserve bottle, a thick, syrupy essence, the color of storm clouds. Aged 10 years in a ceramic urn. The smell is deep and meditative, like walking through monsoon-soaked ruins barefoot. I blend it with a whisper of rose and a drop of sandalwood. Then, just to add a layer of forgotten glory, I include a drop of aged frankincense cracked resin gathered from trees older than some kingdoms. The final blend smells like reverence, like secrets that are spoken only to stones. I call it Shabnami Takdu of the throne. I seal it in a small crystal vial and cradle it like it's made of dreams and glass. Then I pack a fresh set of robes and make my way to the Red Fort once again. This time, I'm escorted directly to the Diwani Khas, the hall of private audiences. The peacock throne sits on a raised marble platform, its golden wings outstretched, its gemstones gleaming like a thunderstorm caught mid-smirk. A pair of guards flank it, spears crossed. The senior eunuch appears, gives me a slow nod, and gestures for me to begin. No words, just ritual. I bow and approach the throne like it's alive, which in a way it is. I unseal the vial and dip a cloth into the blend. Then I gently press it along the base of the golden legs, under the curve of the backrest, along the tail of the peacock, where emeralds glitter like frozen jungle leaves. The scent rises instantly, not as a wave, but as a mist, a breath, a memory. One of the guards shifts. The other closes his eyes just for a second. I step back, seal the vial, and bow once more. The eunuch sniffs, once nods, and says, His Majesty will be pleased. Then after a pause, and the Empress will not notice. Success. Back at the workshop, I'm greeted with a fruit basket from a noble patron. Inside is a note that reads, Your last blend made my sister-in-law cry. I want 2 more. Compliments come in strange flavors these days. I set the basket aside and begin scribbling new labels. The boys are cleaning up, arguing about who mismeasured the last batch of rosadder. It's peaceful chaos, the best kind. That evening, I climb up to the rooftop with a lantern and a small cup of tamarind wine. I can see the top of the fort from here, lit by fire torches and moonlight. Somewhere in those marble halls, my scent lingers beneath a throne carved from pride and ambition. And somehow, I feel calmer knowing that. I lie back on the tiles, breathing in the night air. The city smells of smoke, spice, and rain-damp stone, and far off, carried on the wind, a scent that smells like power, quiet, steady, and a little bit like kus. It's almost midnight when I hear the knock at the back gate. Not the front door, not the sandalwood shop. The back gate, the one nobody uses unless something's gone very wrong. Or very right. I open it slowly, cautiously, expecting anything from a desperate client to an angry civet. Instead, it's a man in scholar's robes holding a lantern in one hand and a wrapped package in the other. His beard is meticulously combed, his eyes sharp, and his fingers stained with ink. A walking contradiction. Half monk, half troublemaker. "I'm told you're the nose," he says with a faint smile. "I've been called worse. I brought something for your opinion," he says, holding up the package like it's either treasure or an elaborate trap. "Come in," I sigh. "But if it's crocodile poop, I'm calling the guards." He laughs. "Not tonight. Tonight it's history." We sit in the back room, where the shelves creak with bottles and dust, and the walls are thick with the ghosts of old blends. He places the bundle on the table and carefully unwraps it. Inside is a scroll. Ancient, frayed, smelling faintly of mildew, papyrus, and cinnamon. He taps the edge. A translation of a lost text from Arabia. Mentions a perfumer in the court of the Umayyads. Claims they created a scent from lightning-struck cedar seafoam and lion fur. I raise an eyebrow. Well, that sounds entirely plausible, and not at all like a drunken hallucination. He grins. "I knew you'd say that." I sniff the parchment again. Underneath the mold and time, there's something odd. A dry, bitter trace. Resinous. Maybe acacia. He watches me like a hawk. "You know, some scholars argue that perfume was invented in Mesopotamia. Others say Egypt, but I believe the first true perfumers were in India." "Of course you do," I say, pouring us tea. "You're here, aren't you?" He laughs and sips. Historians still debate whether the Indus Valley people wore perfume, but clay distillers have been found in ruins. That means something. Everything means something, I reply, especially when it smells. We drink in silence for a while. The tea is sweet and smoky, spiced with cardamom and gossip. Outside, the night is humming with quiet. No elephants, no couriers, just the city, sleeping with one eye open. He leans back, thoughtful. "You ever wonder what happens to your scents after you're gone?" "All the time," I admit. I think about someone opening an old box 100 years from now, catching a whiff of something I made, and remembering a story that never belonged to them. That's the best kind of immortality, he says. The invisible kind. I nod. Or the flammable kind, depending on the distillation method. He chuckles. I'm compiling a record, not just of ingredients, but of intentions. Every great perfumer had a reason. Revenge, love, grief, vanity. Mine's mostly deadlines. He smiles. Still, you should be in it. You've made scents for emperors, thrones, lost brothers, accidental elephants. Yes, that too. He rolls the scroll back up, tucks it into a leather case, and stands. I'll be back tomorrow. I want to show you a clay jar, dug up near Kanoj. Still sealed. Might hold a blend untouched for 1,000 years. Or a very angry snake. Either way, it'll be memorable. After he leaves, I sit by the oil lamp scribbling in my notebook. Notes for a new blend. something historical, something that smells like salt sun and cedar smoke. Maybe I'll name it Inheritance. The boys are all asleep. Even the civet cat is snoring, but my mind is awake. I think of the ancient perfumer in the scroll, the one who dared to bottle lightning and lion fur. Maybe he failed, maybe he exploded. But the idea, the audacity, that survived. And now it's my turn. I open the old ingredient cabinet, pull out a jar of dried saffron, and begin mixing by moonlight, just to see what happens. The next morning begins with an explosion, not a metaphorical one. A very literal, very loud bang from the back of the workshop, followed by a cloud of what smells alarmingly like burned clove and singed hair. Hassan bursts into the courtyard, coughing violently and flailing like he's been attacked by an invisible chili pepper. Whose idea, he gasps, was it to distill cinnamon oil without venting the copper tube? I blink. Yours, I think. He glares. Well, I regret it. The boys gather around the chaos, Samir fanning smoke with a towel, Muna frozen in horror, and the civet cat perched on a shelf like it's judging our life choices. It takes us an hour to air out the lab, and another hour to calm down the neighbor who thought we'd been cursed by a jealous astrologer. Honestly, that would be easier to explain. Once the mess is cleared and no one is visibly on fire, I retreat to the quiet of my garden, my favorite place to reset when life gets too explosive, literally or otherwise. The garden is modest, tucked behind the workshop, but it's my sanctuary. Rows of flowering shrubs line the walls, tuberose, marigold, jasmine, and night-blooming cerise. There's a small pond with lotus blossoms and a crooked wooden bench that groans every time I sit on it, like it disapproves of my posture. The air smells alive, like secrets gently being exhaled. I close my eyes and breathe it all in, and that's when I hear the gate creak open. It's not a courier, not a client. It's someone I haven't seen in years. Uncle? I open my eyes to see a tall, wiry man with a cane and a permanent squint. He looks like a walking encyclopedia of disappointment, but beneath that is the faint trace of old sandalwood and the unmistakable scent of family. Uncle Majid, my father's brother. Once a master perfumer himself, retired bidder and rumored to have sold one of his best formulas to a Persian noble for a bag of pistachios and a boat ride to nowhere. What are you doing here? I ask, standing. He smirks. The wind changed. Thought I'd see if your nose has finally caught up to your mouth. Still insulting me after all these years. Some things never age. He limps over, plucks a marigold from the hedge, and inhales. You still using the old jasmine still? Yes. And still storing your civet paste in a silver tin? Also yes. He grunts approvingly. At least you haven't completely ruined the family name. We sit in silence for a while, watching a hummingbird hover above the pond like it's considering a swim. Finally, he turns to me. I came to give you something. He pulls a tiny leather pouch from inside his coat. Inside is a folded square of parchment. I recognize the scent before I even open it, deep, resinous, spicy, with a smoky undercurrent that clings to memory like damp wool. This is your grandfather's final blend, he says quietly. The one he was working on when the emperor died. He never got to finish it. I stare at the parchment. My grandfather, the man who first taught me to distinguish between vetiver and viper sweat. The man who once said, a good perfume should punch you in the soul. The blend is labeled simply Kuzzaman Earth of Grass. Uncle Majid watches me carefully. I always thought it needed something more, but I never had the nerve to touch it. I nod slowly. Then maybe it's time. We bring the parchment into the lab, and I set out the ingredients. The original blend uses kusroot-aged myrrh, a trace of saffron, and something called jungle resin. No idea what that is, but I've got a few guesses. I recreate it, drop by drop, watching the oils swirl together like they're remembering something I forgot. It's beautiful, but it's missing something. Uncle Majid sniffs, frowns, and mutters, "Too clean, too polite. It needs an edge." I reach for the bitter berry extract I'd set aside days ago, the one I found by the garden fence. I add one drop, and suddenly the whole blend shifts. The scent becomes honest, rooted, a little dangerous, like earth after a lightning storm. Uncle Majid inhales and smiles. There it is. I bottle it and label it Kusaman, completed. Later that evening, I light a lantern in the rooftop garden and write a letter to the Mughal scent archivist, a friend at the palace who owes me a favor and a mango tart. I write a forgotten blend now remembered. It deserves a place in the hall of perfumed histories. Then I sit back, watch the stars blur into streaks of gold, and feel something settle in my chest. Not pride, not relief, just peace. A quiet, grassy kind of peace. The next morning, I'm sipping tea on the roof when I hear a familiar, unwelcome sound, the sharp clack of armored sandals approaching the courtyard. I sigh before I even look. Let me guess, another imperial emergency. Hassan pokes his head out from below, more like an imperial performance. I groan, that's worse. Minutes later, a letter arrives stamped with the seal of the Nakal Khana, the Royal Department for Music, Dance, and Ceremonial Aesthetics. Never trust a government office that smells better than you do. The letter is florid, dramatic, and deeply inconvenient. By royal decree, the scent master is requested to compose an aromatic environment for tomorrow night's musical ceremony, celebrating the Emperor's Southern campaign. The fragrance must be ethereal, masculine, and martial, but also relaxing to noble nerves. Of course, because nothing calms post-battle aristocrats like a gentle mist of vetiver and sandalwood. I reread the letter 3 times and still can't figure out if it's an honor or a trap. Samir's excited, though. You've always wanted to scent a concert. Yes, but not one attended by 30 generals with swords and very sensitive noses. We get to work. This isn't like blending for a person. This is environmental perfumery. Every corner of the Diwani Am, the public audience hall, must carry the scent without choking anyone. The fragrance must dance through the air, not tackle it. I start with agar wood smoke, the classic base for any Mughal gathering. Deep, mysterious, woody. We'll burn it in copper censers spaced along the walls. That gives us a foundation. Next, I blend black cardamom and clove into a tincture. Cardamom, for the generals, sharp, clean, commanding. Clove, for memory, for grounding, for that edge of danger they won't admit they crave. Hassan suggests adding rose. I give him a look. This isn't a wedding. It's a performance celebrating mild conquest. Fine, he says. What about saffron? I nod. Subtle saffron, just enough to create warmth under the smoke. Then I remember something my grandfather once did, hanging pouches of spiced orange peel and cedar chips in the rafters. As the heat rises, so does the scent riding the air like invisible music. We prepare a dozen pouches. By late afternoon, the shop looks like a battlefield. Cloth, scraps, herbs, and handwritten notes are strewn everywhere. Samir has powdered his entire sleeve by accident, and Muna is sneezing like he just insulted the incense gods. We finish just before sunset. The scent is commanding. It smells like a room that tells you to sit up straight, remember your father, and maybe conquer a small kingdom before lunch. We pack the components and head to the palace. At the Diwani Am, everything is already halfway to chaos. Musicians are tuning instruments. Servants are sweeping floors that were already clean. Courtiers are arguing about seating positions as if political careers depend on it. They do. I bow to the chamberlain, present the scent plan, and receive a single, approving grunt. It's the highest praise they give. We set up the censers, hang the pouches, and test the smoke flow using a peacock feather. The air bends, swirls, then rises just as we hoped. By the time the first sitar note plays, the room is alive with sound and scent. The musicians sway gently. The generals sip rose sherbet with furrowed brows. No one sneezes, no one faints, and someone in the back mutters, "Smells like command." Success. I stay for a while, standing in the shadows, letting the music wash over me. The composition is a raga, dedicated to the god of war, but softened at the edges, like a tiger, trained to bow. Later, as the crowd thins and the lamps flicker lower, the empress passes by, veiled and silent. She pauses near the center of the room, lifts her head, and breathes in. Then barely audible saffron and cedar. Clever. I smile. That night, back at the workshop, I find a package waiting. No name. Just a sealed bottle wrapped in green silk. Inside is a vial of Atari henna, rare sharp green as crushed leaves with an edge of metal. It's traditionally used in warrior rituals. There's a note, in case the generals want souvenirs. Signed, the swordmaker's daughter. Ah, I had forgotten about her. But that's a story for another night. The next day begins peacefully. No exploding flasks, no messengers, no royal animals behaving badly. Just a slow sunrise over the rooftops. The clink of teacups in the courtyard and the distant sound of someone definitely failing to tune a sitar, which means, of course, disaster is imminent. Hassan bursts through the side door like he's been chased by demons. He did it, he gasps. Who did what? Your apprentice, the new one. Samir. No. The other one. The quiet one. With the eyes like he's hiding something. I blink. You're going to have to narrow that down. Hassan points toward the back room with the kind of drama usually reserved for death announcements. He stole the ambergris. I freeze. No. Ambergris is actual. Ambergris doesn't just sit around waiting to be stolen. It's whale vomit made divine, found by accident, aged by the sea, and worth more than some nobleman's dowries. I kept it locked away, hidden, almost sacred. I rush to the scent vault and fling open the inner cabinet. The little silver jar is gone. I don't say anything. I don't need to. Hassan watches me with a mixture of concern and awe. Should I alert the guards? No, I mutter. I'll handle this. There's something about betrayal that doesn't quite hit until you smell its absence. The vault feels different. Too clean. Too hollow. Like someone scrubbed away part of history. I remember the boy, Arif. Polite, quiet, barely spoke. Showed promise with floral blends. Always watched more than he spoke. And now, he's vanished. Leave the workshop, without a word, storming through the alleyways, retracing his routes. I check the usual places, spice markets, tea stalls, the shady corner near the mosque, where someone is always playing dice. No Arif. But then, I smell it. A hint, a trace. Caught in the breeze near the silversmith's alley. Not strong, not fresh, but it's there. Ambergris. I follow it like a hound-nosed twitching heart racing. Down 2 alleys past a carpet vendor and into a narrow passage behind the bathhouse. There he is, Arif, standing near a low wall, holding a tiny bottle, hands trembling. I don't yell, I don't storm. I just walk up beside him and say, "That bottle doesn't belong to you." He flinches, but he doesn't run. "I wasn't going to sell it," he says softly. "Oh, that makes this so much better." I deadpan. He sighs. I wanted to know what it felt like to create something perfect. I glance at the bottle. The blend isn't bad. Too much neroli, not enough grounding, but there's potential. You were going to use half the reserve on a personal experiment. He shrugs, ashamed. I thought I could replace it before you noticed. I sit down on the low wall, suddenly tired. You're not the first apprentice to steal, I say. But you might be the first one who stole for the right reason. He looks confused. You stole because you care, That doesn't make it okay, but it means I won't have you thrown in a well. He laughs nervously. I take the bottle and sniff it. Not bad. Wild, naive, but not bad. You'll repay me, I say. Not with money, with work. 2 years. No pay. Full training. You learn the right way. Then if you still want to chase perfection, you'll know how. He nods, eyes wide. Really? Don't make me regret this. We walk back to the workshop together. Samir glares at him. Muna stares like he's seeing a ghost. Hassan grumbles something about weak discipline. I ignore them. That night, I gather the apprentices in the courtyard. I tell them the story of an old perfumer in Damascus who once used tears in a blend. Literal tears. Claimed it gave the scent emotional depth. Historians still debate whether it's true. But the point is clear. Perfume is power. Memory. Forgiveness. Discipline. And sometimes it's mercy. I open the last vial of ambergris and add a single drop to a new blend I've been working on: rose sandalwood, aged vetiver, and now a heartbeat of the sea. I call it Aman. It means peace. And somehow, in the silence of the courtyard, it feels right. Tonight, the garden smells like memory. The tuberose is in full bloom, heady and thick, like it's trying to seduce the moon. The air is still heavy, expectant, like the moment before a monsoon breaks loose across the plains. I sit on the rooftop, again notebook in hand, oil lamp flickering beside me, and think about my grandfather. It's been nearly a decade since he passed, but sometimes I still catch the scent of him in the corridors, a trace of oud ink and the faintest bitterness of lime peel. The smell of wisdom with a stubborn streak. He used to sit here exactly like this, legs crossed arms, resting on his knees, muttering to himself while watching the stars and blaming every failed blend on Mercury being in retrograde, even when he wasn't sure what that meant. I remember the day he let me distill my first batch. Jasmine and sandalwood. I was 10. I overcooked the mix, forgot the lid, and spilled half the result on his best shoes. He looked at me quiet for a moment, then said, "At least your mistakes smell expensive." Now I close my eyes and breathe in the garden. Every plant here was planted by someone I knew, someone I loved, or at the very least, someone I owed money to. There's the patch of holy basil my mother grew for tea, the cluster of champa trees my aunt swore brought dreams of marriage, and the stubborn little neem sapling that refuses to die, no matter how many times we forget to water it. Muna wanders in with a tray of dried rose petals, unsure if I'm busy or just talking to ghosts. I wave him over. "Sit," I say. He does awkwardly, as if he's expecting a pop quiz or a life lesson. He's not wrong. "Do you know what this garden is?" I ask. He frowns. "Your perfume lab." "No, it's a library. One that speaks in scent instead of words." He looks confused. I don't blame him. He's 13. I point at the tuberose. That's how I remember my sister's wedding. It bloomed like mad that week. Every time I smell it, I hear her laugh. I point at the vetiver. That one's my father's temper. Always grounding, always one breath away from boiling over. I lean back and sigh. This garden is my history, my failure, my pride. Muna nods slowly, then asks, "Does that mean the civet cat is your cousin?" I nearly choke on my tea. "No, Muna, but I like the way you think." He leaves after a while, and I'm alone again, just me and the garden. And then I hear it. Soft steps, a familiar knock, and a voice I never expected again. Still burning the midnight oil? I turn. She stands in the doorway, robes catching the breeze, veil pushed back, just enough to show the faintest smile. The Empress. But not as the Empress. As a woman. "I had to come," she says. "I smelled something tonight. Saffron and salt and firewood. And I knew it was yours." I bow, because what else does one do? She walks into the garden like she belongs there, like she's wandered into a memory and decided to stay a while. I wanted to see where it happens, she says. I gesture around us. Here, between the tuberose and the gilt, she smiles. You're always half a poet and half a disaster. She picks a single marigold and rolls it between her fingers. I've been wearing racks every night, she says softly. It still surprises me. That's the point. There's a long silence. Then she says, what will you leave behind when you're gone? It's not a question. It's a challenge. I look at the garden, the workshop, the apprentices snoring below us, the notebook in my lap filled with failed recipes and daydreams. I'll leave scent, I say. Not all of it good, but all of it mine. She nods, then hands me something small wrapped in silk. Inside is a ring. Heavy gold inlaid with lapis. Use it, she says. When you name something worthy, then she's gone. A memory in the shape of a woman. I sit there, the ring warm in my hand, the stars spinning above, and the garden whispering all around me. And I know exactly what I'll do tomorrow. Morning breaks slow and syrupy, the kind of sunrise that doesn't rush anything. Light spills into the courtyard like honey, and the scent of burnt cardamom from someone's overzealous chai drift battles with the more delicate perfume of blooming champa. I wake with the Empress's ring still on my table. The lapis glows faintly in the morning light, the gold band etched with filigree, so fine it looks like it was spun from silk and breath. I run my thumb over it. When you name something worthy, she said, which of course begs the question, what is worthy? Not the most expensive blend I've made, not the rarest. Definitely not the one with the crocodile poop rumor attached to it. No, this has to be something else. Something that's mine, not just in craft, but in soul. I wander down to the workshop, still barefoot, still half asleep, and find Arif already working. He's been quieter since the ambergris fiasco, but also sharper, more focused. Like he knows he almost threw it all away and decided never to blink again. He's experimenting with lemongrass and basil. Not terrible. Still smells like a temple and a salad got into an argument, but he's learning. I pat him on the shoulder and head for the vault. There's a box there I haven't opened in years, a cedar wood case, smooth with age, with a brass latch that sticks no matter how carefully you open it. Inside, 5 little glass vials, dusty, unlabeled, forgotten. They're the blends I made after my father died. I pull the first one. Sniff. Too sharp. All clove and grief. The second. Bitter. Angry. I think I added neem oil just to punish myself. The third, this one. Warm. Heavy. Like a worn shawl. A little saffron. A bit of burnt vetiver. And yes, a hidden drop of honeyed tobacco. It smells like apology, like acceptance, like the moment you finally cry and no one's watching. I sit with it a while. This is the one. I carry it to the garden. It's quiet there, save for the buzzing of bees and the cooing of a pigeon who has appointed himself my personal supervisor. I open the vial, pour the contents into a fresh bottle, and write a new label with my finest brush. Nishan, forgetfulness. Not the careless kind, the merciful kind, the kind that lets you sleep, that lets old wounds stop throbbing, that lets a person become new again. I hold the bottle in one hand and the Empress's ring in the other. I press the seal into wax. Worthy. That afternoon, I present Nishan at the Hall of Scented Records, a side wing of the Palace Library most people don't even know exists. It's a cool, dark space filled with scrolls, formulas, dried herbs, and shelves of vials labeled with names like Fire Under Silk Emperor's Breath and the Mango Incident Don't Ask. The Royal Archivist, a sharp-nosed woman who once corrected my pronunciation of bergamot in front of a prince, takes the bottle, sniffs it, then closes her eyes. Her only comment, "This smells like letting go." I nod. She writes it in the record Nishan, created by the House of Ghulam. Date 13th day of Shaban 1036, AH, mood. Sorrow softened by time. On my way out, I find a slip of parchment tucked into my satchel. No signature, just a line. What we forget, we carry differently. I think about that all the way home. That evening, the boys surprise me. They've cleaned the entire shop, labeled the shelves, polished the stills. Even the civet cat has a fresh patch of cloth to sleep on. There's a small cake on the table, cardamom, and almond from the baker next door. Samir pretends it was all his idea. Hassan rolls his eyes so hard he nearly falls over. They've written something on the cake and icing to the nose who remembers. I don't cry. But the room does get very blurry for a second. Later that night, I write a letter to someone who doesn't exist yet. My daughter. I don't have one, not yet. Maybe not ever. But if I did, I'd want her to know everything. About scent. About beauty. About how grief smells different when you stop trying to run from it. I write, they will tell you, this art is not for women. Ignore them. The nose does not know gender. Only honesty. Keep the civet away from the saffron, and never blend a scent when you're angry. Unless that's the point, I sign the letter and tuck it into my recipe book. Who knows? Maybe one day. The house is quiet tonight. That rare kind of silence where even the pigeons have called a truce and the city forgets to creak. The air is thick with the scent of sandalwood ash and tuberose blooms curling open like sleepy mouths, whispering secrets to the dark. I sit at my desk alone, mixing my final blend of the day. Not for a client, not for the court. This one's for me. The bottle is empty. The kind of bottle you save for something that matters, thick glass, slightly imperfect, with a soft green tint that catches the lamplight just enough to feel like dusk in your palm. I pull out the ingredients, slowly, like greeting old friends. Vetiver deep and earthy. The scent of grounding, of walking barefoot after the rain and feeling the world let you breathe again. Saffron, delicate and dangerous. The edge of a memory you'd forgotten until a scent pulled it back like a silk thread around your ribs. Dried rose, not fresh. No, the kind left in a letter or pressed between pages of a book that smelled like longing. Soft, dusty, dignified. And finally smoke. Not fire. Smoke. The aftermath. A curl of something burned, survived, remembered. I add a drop of each, watching them swirl and resist and then eventually surrender into each other. It smells like dusk in a courtyard I haven't stood in since childhood. Like endings and beginnings pretending they're different things. Like something you wear not to impress anyone, but to remind yourself you're still here. I call it Akri, the last. I seal the bottle, press my signet into the wax, and place it gently on the shelf beside Rax, Zard, Saya, and Nishan. It sits quietly, like it's always been there. Outside, the moon climbs higher, bathing the garden in silver. I step into the night barefoot, feeling the cool stone beneath my soles, the warmth still lingering from the day. The civet cat watches me from the shadow of the neem tree with that vaguely disapproving look all cats have perfected. I light a single stick of sandalwood incense. Just one. Let the night carry the smoke wherever it needs to go. And I think about all the scents I've made, some noble, some absurd. One that smelled suspiciously like pickled onions. But each of them in their own way was a record of who I was in that moment. People think perfume is about beauty. It's not. It's about truth. You can't hide when you blend. Your joy will slip into the rose. Your grief will thicken the musk. Your love will soften the spice, even if you swear it won't. And when you're gone, they'll find the bottle. They'll unstopper it. And for a moment, just a moment, you'll be there, whispering in scent. Still unfinished. Still lingering. Still you.